I pushed open the office door and froze. Liam, my husband, was behind the intern, tugging at her pantyhose, smoothing out the fabric with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. Her cheeks were flushed. His shirt collar was open. And when they saw me, only she flinched. "Grace," she stammered, "it's not what it looks like." My hands were full, and he was just helping me with my coat. Liam didn't even pretend to care. "I'll help whoever I want," he said. Then, with a sneer, "Maybe try knocking next time?" My fingers tightened around the wedding anniversary gift I'd brought. I looked at him, then her, then calmly dropped the box into the trash. "Understood," I said. "I'll help myself out then." I walked out and called my lawyer. "Draft the divorce papers," I said. 5 years of marriage, ended in 5 seconds. I didn't cry. Not when I reached the car. Not even when I passed our favorite cafe, the one where Liam used to say, "Let's grow old here." I just stared ahead, hands gripping the wheel, my mind replaying the look he gave me. Disgust. Like I was some stray dog barging into his territory. I parked outside our home, grabbed my files, and walked straight into the study. I had no reason to feel guilty. I wasn't the one fixing another woman's tights. Yet, my chest ached in that hollow, echoing way you feel when something important dies quietly. I sat down and typed a single message to my lawyer. "I want full separation. No alimony. No settlements. Just give me my peace." His reply came fast. "I'll have papers in your inbox tonight." I didn't even sigh. I just clicked read, and let that be the end of it. Liam came home late like always, but this time, he didn't have the decency to lie. He strutted in, loosened his tie, and threw his blazer on the couch like he owned the world. I stayed silent, seated calmly with a cup of green tea. He glanced at me, still awake. I smiled. Not for long. He raised an eyebrow. "We fighting again?" I stood up slowly and walked over to him. "There won't be another fight," I said. "I'm done." He scoffed. "Again with your drama." I pulled the printed divorce draft from the drawer and placed it on the table. "Not drama," I said, "just documentation." For the first time that night, he went quiet. I turned and walked up the stairs. My voice was calm when I added, "I'm removing myself from your circus, Liam. Enjoy your clowns." He followed me upstairs, of course. His ego wouldn't let me have the last word. "You think this makes you powerful?" he said, blocking my bedroom door. "That in turn doesn't mean anything." I looked at him, amused. "You fixed her clothes with more care than you've touched me in months." He didn't deny it. Instead, he folded his arms, lips twitching like a brat caught cheating on a test. "Don't throw away what we built," he said. "We built nothing," I replied. "I laid the bricks. You lit the match." That shut him up. For a second. Then came the snide grin. "You'll be crawling back once the loneliness hits." I brushed past him, unlocked the door, and shut it behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I just turned the lock, laid down, and listened to the sound of him storming down the stairs like a child who didn't get his way. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I made myself breakfast, just one plate this time. 1 egg, 1 toast, 1 coffee. No more matching mugs. No more extra bacon. I packed a small suitcase with clothes and documents, left the key on the dining table, and walked out before he could say anything. I moved into a friend's guest room. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No Liam tossing, turning, muttering work complaints. No scent of unfamiliar perfume on his collars. Just quiet. Beautiful, forgiving quiet. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a message. "Liam, you'll regret this." I didn't even open it. I just blocked the number. And that was that. Or so I thought. The next week, I went back to my job, quiet, focused, efficient. But something felt off. My coworkers wouldn't look me in the eye. My team lead kept dodging me. And then came the email. "You are hereby terminated, effective immediately." No warning. No explanation. Just an attached signature, Liam's. I sat there, rereading the words, my pulse steady. I wasn't even angry, just amused. He fired me. From the company I helped build. The same company I joined before we even had proper office chairs. I shut my laptop slowly and whispered, "Good move, Liam." It didn't hurt. If anything, it made my next step easier. I was officially free. That same evening, my former mentor called me. "I heard what happened," she said. "You okay?" I smiled into the phone. "Better than I've been in years." She laughed. "Good. Because I've got something for you. You still interested in running your own branch?" I blinked. "You serious?" "Dead serious," she replied. "The investors are ready. They just need a face. And you, Grace, you're the whole damn brand." My heart thumped, but my voice stayed calm. "Send me the proposal." It arrived 10 minutes later. I read every word, ran the numbers, and smiled. This wasn't just a job. It was power. It was mine. Opening day came fast. My name on the glass door. My rules. My space. And by a twist of fate, or maybe karma, one of our first clients was a former supplier Liam had pissed off. I greeted him with a warm handshake. "Welcome," I said, "to a real company." He laughed so hard he nearly cried. About time someone took that man down a notch. I wasn't planning revenge. But I wasn't turning away opportunity either. Word spread fast. The woman Liam fired was now running one of the fastest-growing firms in the city. Suddenly, my inbox was full. Recruiters, investors, even former coworkers asking for a spot. The silence I'd once feared had turned into applause. It didn't take long for Liam to find out. He showed up at the lobby uninvited, dressed sharp, smug as ever. He walked up to the front desk and said, "Tell Grace her husband's here to see her." My receptionist blinked. "Sir," she said without missing a beat, "you're not her husband anymore." He laughed like it was a joke. "I'm serious. She'll want to see me." She tilted her head. "She's engaged to our CFO." "Try again." The smugness cracked. Just a little. He stood there, stunned, watching people walk past, none of them acknowledging him. And I was upstairs, watching everything on the camera feed.
Silent. Calm.
Triumphant. I didn't come down.
Not that day.
Not when he called. Not when he emailed. I didn't need closure. I didn't need apologies. I had already walked away from the fire. I had rebuilt from the ashes. And I was shining. Weeks passed. He stopped trying. Or maybe he just couldn't handle seeing me win. Either way, I got what I came for. Not revenge. Just peace. The sweetest ending. A month later, the company I built hit its first $1 million deal. The investor shook my hand and said, "Never thought I'd meet someone who turned being fired into a ladder." I smiled. Some men dig graves thinking they're building thrones. He laughed and raised a glass. That night, my story was picked up by a local business blog. Fired by her CEO husband, now a rising empire builder. My inbox exploded. But what caught my eye was a short message, anonymous. No sender name. Just one sentence. "Do you ever miss me?" I stared at it, then deleted it. He wanted to be the crack in my armor. He forgot. I'd already sealed that shut. And besides, I wasn't looking back. I had no reason to. The intern he traded me for? Fired weeks after I left. Apparently, her hands being full wasn't enough to justify her terrible performance. Liam replaced her fast, just like he replaced his vows. 3 weeks after the article came out, I received a message from HR at Liam's company. "Grace, would you be willing to participate in an industry panel next month?" I blinked at the name. Chloe, the intern. Apparently now their new PR lead. How poetic. I called back. She answered cheerfully, but the moment I said my name, her tone shifted.
"Oh, Grace.
Didn't think you'd respond." I smiled. "Don't flatter yourself. I just wanted to be clear. I won't be on any panel that gives Liam free press. If you're desperate for credibility, earn it." She stammered something weak. I hung up before she finished. Later that night, a burner account messaged me on Instagram. A video of Liam, drunk, slurring at a bar. "Grace made this company. I ruined everything." The caption read, Still think you won't come back? I just closed the app. The past doesn't scare me anymore. It bores me. A week later, I visited my old neighborhood. Not for nostalgia, just to meet a client. But as fate would have it, Liam was there, sitting on the same bench we used to fight over during Sunday walks.
He looked smaller now.
Like someone had drained the arrogance out of him. He stood when he saw me. "Grace," he called, like he hadn't rehearsed it 100 times. I stopped. He took a step forward, holding something in his hand.
My old notebook.
The one I'd filled with product ideas years ago. "I found this," he said. "Thought you might want it." I looked him in the eye. "That version of me died the day you sold my loyalty, for a skirt and a smile."
He winced.
I was stupid. I nodded. "That you were."
And weak.
And careless. And now irrelevant. I didn't take the notebook. I turned and left. Let him carry my old dreams. I had new ones now. He started showing up everywhere after that. Awards ceremonies. Industry events. Always alone, always watching. One evening, after I accepted a major grant, he approached again. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. I tilted my head. "You were never part of this chapter."
He looked down.
"I know." He pulled something from his pocket. The divorce decree.
Signed.
Stamped. Dated. I didn't want to let go, he admitted. "I thought if I didn't sign it, you'd still be mine in some way." I didn't touch the papers.
You were wrong, I said.
"I stopped being yours the day I realized my silence was more loyal than your promises." He nodded, defeated. "I hope someone sees you, for what you're worth." I smiled softly. "They already do." I walked away with the click of my heels echoing on the stage floor. The applause I got that night wasn't just for business. It was for surviving. Not long after, I received a wedding invite. No sender name. Just a white envelope with gold trim. Inside, one line caught my eye. "You are cordially invited to witness the beginning of forever, Liam and Chloe." I almost laughed. The girl who ruined everything, and the man who never protected anything. They were marrying.
Fitting.
I didn't RSVP. I didn't show up. But 2 days after the wedding, my phone buzzed. A photo. Liam and Chloe cutting the cake, but her dress stained with red wine, his smile tight and fake. A caption followed. "Thought you'd want to see how happy we are." I turned off notifications. But somewhere deep down, I knew the only reason they sent that was because they wanted me to see it. Because the woman who left without crying is more terrifying than the one who begs to stay. 3 months later, I was giving a keynote speech at an innovation summit. When I stepped off stage, a young woman rushed up to me. "Grace," she breathed. "You don't know me, but I used to work under Chloe." I blinked. "Oh." She nodded. "She told us you were the reason the company lost so many deals. Said you'd tried to sabotage Liam." I smiled slightly. "And what do you think?" The girl looked away, almost ashamed. "I think she was scared of you. You were everything she knew she couldn't be." I thanked her. She asked for a selfie. Later, I posted it on my feed with the caption, "If your truth scares them, let it." It got more likes than anything I'd ever posted. Somewhere out there, I knew Liam and Chloe saw it. Let them. Let them see what real power looks like. I began mentoring young women after that. Teaching them not just how to negotiate deals, but how to walk away when love turns into a leash. One of them asked me, "Don't you regret staying with him so long?" I paused. "No," I said, "because if I hadn't learned what betrayal felt like, I wouldn't have known what self-worth looks like." Another girl chimed in. "What if he begs to come back?" I chuckled. "Then I'll give him my assistant's number. She knows how to block people fast." The whole room laughed. But there was truth under the humor. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for karma. I had become it. A year later, I ran into Chloe again. This time, she was alone, no Liam, no ring. Her hair was thinner, her clothes less polished. "Grace," she said softly, almost like a friend. I stayed quiet. She shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't expect you to fall," I offered. She gave a weak smile. He cheated again. Same intern trick. I guess I thought he'd change for me. I stared at her. expression blank. Men like Liam don't change. They just rebrand. She nodded slowly, shame written all over her face. I was stupid. I shrugged. We all were. The difference is I got smart and left. I walked past her. I didn't look back. Liam never remarried after Chloe. His company went under 2 years later after a scandal involving embezzled funds. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it. I just donated to a women's business grant in his city and called it a day. Some victories are best served quiet. A journalist later asked me, if you could say one thing to your ex-husband now, what would it be? I paused for a long time, then finally said, thank you for letting me go. The next time Liam tried contacting me, it wasn't a text or a message. It was through his lawyer. Apparently, he wanted to sue me. The reason? Defamation. I blinked at the file, then laughed. His lawyer called me personally. Miss Grace, I'm only the messenger, but even I don't know what he's thinking. I responded calmly. Tell your client I'll see him in court. And tell him to bring every lie he's ever told. I'll bring the receipts. A week later, he withdrew the lawsuit.
Why?
Because someone on his legal team found the audio files I'd once recorded in secret. The meetings, the threats, the betrayals. The same betrayal he once said would never matter. The internet doesn't forget. Neither do I. That day, I sat at my desk, rereading every page. Not because I was angry, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like to let someone so small believe they were bigger than me. News spread fast. A gossip site published a blind item. CEO tried suing ex-wife, but files exposed his lies instead. No names were mentioned, but anyone with half a brain figured it out. I got dozens of messages that day, investors saying, we stand with you, women saying, I wish I walked away like you. But the message that stayed with me most came from a young intern at Liam's former company. Thank you for leaving. Because when you did, the rest of us finally saw him for who he really was. It hit me. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's the loudest truth you can scream. Later that night, I received another message. It was from Liam. Just 4 words, you really did win. No apology. No emotion. Just quiet defeat. I didn't reply. I wasn't interested in his grief. I was too busy living the life he told me I'd never have. I started appearing in interviews, not just about my company, but about healing. On one show, the host leaned in and asked, do you think love is still worth it? I smiled, then said, absolutely, but only the kind that doesn't ask you to shrink. The episode went viral. I wasn't trying to trend. I was just telling the truth. And the truth is, love is supposed to build you, not break you, and say it's your fault for bleeding. 2 days after that interview, someone sent me a photo. Liam, alone at a gala we used to attend together. A whiskey glass in his hand, his eyes lost. The person captioned it, still waiting on you? I replied, he waited too long. I posted nothing.
Said nothing.
But deep inside, I knew he watched everything I did. Maybe that was his punishment. Seeing me glow in a world he tried to bury me in. Eventually, Chloe resurfaced again. This time, not as a rival, but as a cautionary tale. She went live on social media, crying in front of a blurred-out background. He ruined my life, she sobbed. He told me he left her for me, but I was just next on the list.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't need to.
The comments were enough. Now you understand. Should have thought about that before wearing another woman's crown. Karma didn't need my help. It had perfect aim. And me? I was busy signing a deal with a global brand, one Chloe once begged to intern for. I wore red that day. Power red. A color she once said looked too harsh on me. Funny how harsh becomes iconic when it's worn by the right woman. After the deal was signed, I raised a glass and toasted quietly to myself. To new beginnings, and to every ending that tried to break me, but didn't. Not long after, I returned to the city where it all began. Same skyline. Same streets. But everything looked smaller now. I wasn't that girl anymore. The one who said, I'm sorry for things that hurt her. I visited my old apartment. It was still there, same peeling paint, same creaky elevator. But the memories? They didn't sting anymore. They just existed. Like museum pieces. Artifacts of a woman who hadn't yet found her fire. I stood outside the gate and whispered to myself, "Thank you." Because without that pain, I wouldn't have found this power. As I turned to leave, I saw a man watching me from a parked car. For a second, I thought it might be him.
Liam.
But it wasn't. Just someone who probably thought he recognized me. I smiled politely and walked away. I didn't need to check who was watching. Whoever it was, they were looking at a woman who never begged to be seen again. A few months later, I got engaged. It wasn't grand or flashy. Just the two of us, under a skyline that had once been the backdrop of my lowest moments. He held my hand, no speeches, no drama. Just this. I won't promise to never hurt you, but I promise to never dismiss your pain. And somehow that meant more than any fairy tale. I posted one photo, black and white, our hands intertwined, the caption simple, Chapter 2. The comments exploded. You deserve this. Finally. We watched you rise. But my favorite comment? From a stranger who wrote, "Some women write survival stories. You lived one. And maybe I did. But I also rewrote it. Because survival isn't just about walking away. It's about walking back in, with your head high, your worth intact, and your past too small to fit into your new world." 3 days before my wedding, I received an email with no subject. Just a photo. Liam. In a hospital bed.
Tubes. Pale.
Unshaved. No message. No explanation. My assistant asked, "Should I delete it?" I thought about it, then said, "No. Let it sit there." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. For too long. And now, caring wasn't my job anymore. That night, I wrote my vows. Not just to my fiancé, but to myself. I promised never to abandon myself to keep someone else comfortable. I promised to choose peace, even when chaos begged louder. I promised to never again shrink for someone who needed to feel big. The next morning, I walked into my final dress fitting with a smile so bright, even the mirror smiled back. And when I stepped out, the assistant gasped, "You look like someone who survived hell and came back with fire." On the day of my wedding, it rained. Not a downpour. Just soft, steady rain. My fiancé kissed my hand and said, "You make even the clouds look warm." I laughed. Not because of the line, but because I remembered how Liam once said I wasn't soft enough to wear white. I wore ivory. And I looked like victory. Halfway through the reception, my maid of honor pulled me aside. "Someone sent this," she said, holding up an envelope. I opened it. Inside was a note. I saw the photos. "You look happy. I hope he never hurts you." It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting. Liam. I folded the paper, tucked it in my bag, and said, "He got one thing right." I was happy. And that happiness didn't need closure. It didn't need his words. It had already taken root. So deep, even regret couldn't touch it. That night, after all the lights dimmed and the guests were gone, I stood under the stars with my new husband.
He pulled me into his chest.
"Tell me what you're thinking," he said. I closed my eyes. That the girl who once cried in an office doorway became the woman who built her own. He smiled. And I'm the lucky man who gets to walk beside her. We didn't toast to forever. We just promised to be present. That was enough. Because in a world full of betrayal, lies, and second guesses, I had finally found something real. Not perfect. Not scripted. Just honest. And after everything I endured, that was the greatest love story I could ever ask for. Back at work, people started referring to me as the comeback queen. I didn't ask for the nickname, but I wore it anyway. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rewriting the rules. The same boardroom where Liam once humiliated me, I stood there now not as someone's wife, but as someone's boss. One of the interns spilled coffee during a meeting and began crying, fearing she'd be fired. I walked over, handed her a tissue, and said, "One mistake doesn't define you." I made bigger ones, like trusting the wrong man. Everyone went silent, but the intern smiled through her tears. Later that evening, She knocked on my door. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not being like him." That hit me. Legacy isn't about how high you climb, it's about how you lift others as you rise. I didn't need to scream, I'd changed. The world was already whispering it back to me. 2 months later, I hosted a charity gala. The theme was resilience. I wore a dress stitched by a designer who once told me, "You're not the type women want to dress." She now begged to be featured in the press photos. The irony wasn't lost on me. Liam came too. Not by invitation, he just showed up. Someone must have leaked the event location. He looked smaller than I remembered, like a man trying to wear the confidence he once had like an ill-fitting suit. I walked past him with my head high. He reached out. "Grace," I didn't stop. Just said, "You're late." Again. That night, I gave a speech. To every woman who was ever told to sit down, shut up, and smile, get up. Speak loud. And grin only when you win. The crowd stood. They weren't clapping for the speech. They were clapping for the story. For the girl who broke, rebuilt, and refused to be quiet. The next morning, tabloids ran the headline. CEO Grace Ford snubs exit gala. "You're late again" goes viral. It became a catchphrase. People printed it on shirts, mugs, memes. "You're late again" turned into code for anyone reclaiming their power. And Liam? He watched it all happen from the sidelines. He tried messaging again. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Because we had already talked, he just never listened. A week later, his assistant reached out to mine. Apparently, Liam was stepping down from the company. Health reasons, the memo said. But we both knew what it was: shame. Or maybe exhaustion from pretending to be someone people respected. My assistant looked at me and asked, "Are you happy?" I answered honestly, "I'm peaceful." Happiness is loud. Peace is soft. And after all the shouting, the silence felt divine. 6 months into my new marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I stared at the test in disbelief. Not because I didn't want this, but because for so long I believed I'd never have space for it. Liam once told me, "You're too focused on your career to ever be a mother." I smiled at the thought.
How wrong he was.
I told my husband that night.
He cried. I didn't.
I was too stunned, too in awe of how life could still surprise me with joy. We framed the ultrasound next to a quote that read, "Bloom anyway." Because that's exactly what I'd done. Despite the damage, despite the drought, I had bloomed. And now, I'd raise a child who'd know what strength looked like, not from fairy tales, but from a mother who wrote her own. Later, Liam sent one last message. A letter. Handwritten. 8 pages. Apologies, excuses, reflections. At the end, he wrote, "If I had known you'd become this, I would have never let you go." I read it once, then again, and then I burned it. I didn't want to carry his final words into my next chapter. I didn't need his regret wrapped in paper. I had peace, love, and a future that no longer had space for his name. Closure wasn't something I owed him. It was something I gifted myself, in silence, by choosing not to answer. That's the thing about transformation. It doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't beg to be understood. It simply moves forward, leaving behind only ashes where a fire once burned too wild, too long. When I gave birth, it was raining again, just like on my wedding day. Soft, steady, as if the sky remembered. My daughter arrived just after midnight, her cry strong, angry, alive. I held her against my chest and whispered, "No one will ever silence you." In that moment, I didn't think of Liam. Not even once. All I saw was the future, bright, unwritten, and finally, mine to shape.
People said I'd changed.
They were right. But it wasn't the pain that changed me. It was the healing. The slow, daily decision to rise, even when nothing made sense. I looked at my daughter and smiled. She wouldn't grow up watching her mother beg to be loved. She'd watch her mother choose herself every time. 3 weeks later, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship summit. I walked on stage wearing the same earrings I once pawned to help Liam cover payroll. The irony wasn't lost on me. People often ask when I knew I was done. I began. It wasn't when he cheated. It wasn't when he lied. It was when I looked in the mirror and realized I couldn't recognize myself anymore. The room went still. So I left. I didn't run. I walked, head high, heels firm, voice steady. I closed my speech with a promise. If you've ever been told your story ends in silence, just remember, some women don't break. We rebuild. And we build empires. As I stepped off stage, reporters swarmed. One asked if I had anything to say to my ex-husband. I smiled. Tell him thank you. He made space for someone better. They didn't know if I meant my husband or myself. After the summit, I visited my old neighborhood. The tiny apartment where Liam and I once ate instant ramen and dreamed of building a life. The windows were dirty now. A new couple lived there, laughing, burning toast, arguing playfully. I watched from the street, not because I missed it, but because I wanted to say goodbye properly. I stood there for 10 minutes before walking away. Some memories deserve a final visit, not a permanent home. That night, I called my mother. She had once begged me to leave him.
I didn't listen then.
You were right, I said softly, but I had to learn it myself. She didn't say, I told you so. She just said, I'm proud of you. That meant everything. Not because I needed validation, but because after all this time, it felt like the circle had finally closed. I wasn't running anymore. I was simply walking forward. A few weeks later, Liam's assistant reached out. Not for business, but to deliver news. Liam had sold the last of his company's shares. Quietly. Anonymously. Apparently, he was moving abroad for treatment.
He's sick, she said.
Stage 3. Liver. I didn't know what to feel.
Pity?
Relief?
Nothing?
That night, I told my husband everything. He listened without interruption, then took my hand and said, Your past doesn't scare me. It shaped you, but I won't let it haunt you. I cried, not because I was sad, but because I finally felt safe. Liam's sickness wasn't my burden. His regret wasn't my responsibility. Healing doesn't mean hoping they recover. It means you don't bleed when their name is spoken anymore. And that night, I didn't. I just whispered a quiet, almost indifferent prayer. Let him find peace. Then I turned off my phone.
My daughter was crying.
And right now, she was the only one who mattered. One morning, while reviewing documents at my office, I noticed a thick envelope marked confidential. Inside was a letter, handwritten. I recognized Liam's handwriting immediately. The strokes looked weaker, shaky, but still him. Grace, it began. I ruined everything. I thought you'd always be there, no matter how cruel I was. But you weren't the weak one. I was. I read each word slowly, not with anger, but with clarity. They say you don't know what you have until it's gone. But I knew. I just didn't care until it was too late. There was no request for forgiveness. Only an apology. You became everything I told you you'd never be. And I became a man I don't even recognize anymore. At the end, there were 3 words. I loved you. I folded the letter, tucked it away, and left it in a locked drawer. It didn't change anything, but it closed something in me for good. A few days after receiving the letter, a box arrived. It contained old photographs, a watch I once gifted him, and an envelope with transfer documents. Liam had legally signed over the apartment we once lived in and his remaining company shares, now worthless on paper, but symbolic nonetheless. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just packed everything into storage. My assistant asked if I wanted to respond. I said, no. He said goodbye. And I already did long ago. That weekend, I repainted my daughter's room with my husband. We stenciled stars on the walls. She giggled with every splash. That laughter healed me more than any apology ever could. The past was over. The pain had been composted into strength. As I stood in her room, surrounded by laughter and fresh paint, I realized something. This was it. Not revenge. Not power. Not even peace. This was joy. The kind that no one could take away again. A month later, I received one final call from the hospital. Liam had been admitted again, this time under an alias. They said he refused visitors, refused medication, and spent most of his time staring out the window. I didn't go. There was nothing left to say. But my assistant later told me he had begun writing letters. Pages and pages to no one in particular. Sometimes addressed to me, sometimes just to the woman I failed. After another fall, this time in his bathroom, he was paralyzed. The doctors said he wouldn't walk again. The damage was irreversible. They offered long-term care, but he declined. Instead, he requested to move to a center abroad where he could decide how to end things on his terms. I wasn't angry. I wasn't relieved. I simply accepted it. He had made his choices. And now, he was facing them alone. As we all must, eventually. Weeks passed. My daughter asked me one day why I didn't have any pictures of the man from before. I paused, unsure how to answer. Then I knelt and told her, because not all stories are meant to be framed. Some are lessons. She nodded, her small hands touching my cheek. I like Daddy now better. I smiled.
So did I.
My husband walked in then, carrying homemade waffles. We laughed, ate breakfast, made messy memories. Life didn't look like what I once imagined, but it was fuller than I ever dared to hope. Grace wasn't just my name. It was the way I moved forward. Quiet, strong, certain. That night, I looked up at the stars I painted on the ceiling. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. No nightmares. No ghosts. Just silence. The good kind. The kind that comes after a storm, when everything broken has finally healed. 3 months later, I was contacted by a legal representative. Liam had passed away. Not by illness, but by choice. He had opted for euthanasia at a clinic in Switzerland, surrounded by no one. I didn't cry. I simply sat by the window that evening, holding a letter they had delivered along with his will. It was short. His handwriting was shaky. Only 6 words were written, spaced on the center of the page. I'm sorry. I love you. That was it. Nothing more. No signature. Just a final confession from a man who spent too long believing I would always stay. I folded the paper and burned it, watching the flames curl around every lie, every wound, every memory I no longer needed. He was gone. And I was still here. Still living. Still loving. And that, in the end, was all that mattered. Thank you for watching today's story. If this journey moved you, please like the video and share it with a friend who might need it. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, your stories, your strength, your second chances. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more empowering stories every week. Until next time, remember, sometimes the biggest revenge is living a life so beautiful, they never get to be a part of it.